Dark Army Resurrection keeps crashing, so I'm gonna try brute forcing things still. And if it still just doesn't work, then I give up trying to beat Dark Army Resurrection in Master Mode. I could just stop using Hyrule Rebalance, but like, oh my god, Hyrule Rebalance just makes things too good. I could downgrade to an older version of Hyrule Rebalance that works, but I like the latest version.
Ad Astra Abyssosque. Welcome to the Adventurers Guild.
And then just stays there. This is why precise sticking in a groove is so hard. The cursor is constantly soft locking from one accent to the next. Next up, Top the Blacksmith. That's his name, not a command.
I could also find some time to play some Genshin.
Section where the players have to actually perform the important mechanics and see how they work in a real scenario. This is a perfect example of why that design is so important. This is a generic here's how stuff works tutorial, and it's broken and it's not going into my brain. I'm not learning anything. If the game opened with a section where upgrading was actually needed and took me through it step by step and I could see the impact that was having on my gameplay, I would understand it. And I would care about it much more. I am amazed at how many people are hanging around though. The game clearly has a sizable player base still. And now we're introduced to what will essentially become the rest of the game. The Time-Space Stones. Rips in reality with monsters in them. Time-Space Stones are level-gated, and if you follow the main story, you'll always be at the right level, but not necessarily the right power to actually finish them. Each Time-Space Stone has the word click above it. So we click and we go in. The first room is always the lobby. You can organise your team here, then you move through one of the 4 edges to advance to the next room. Each room is basically identical. The red wavy background, that's identical too. Sometimes enemies spawn and you kill them. You advance to the next room. Sometimes there are levers which open doors. Some rooms have you defending an NPC. And the whole thing is timed. You can see the countdown to the bottom left. You've got a 1-minute timer that counts down, and then next to that is a number of rocks. 1 minute uses up 1 rock. Run out of rocks and you die. Finish a time space, get a random reward. Return to the main village and get a tutorial about rarity, which means another white window. The village needs defending. This means go and do more time space things. So we head off. The minimap showed the local connections and exits to other maps. So we go to the meadows just north of the village, head to the next time stone, go in, and it's the same as the first. Right, I guess this is the game. Pull some more levers and... hang on, no, wait, go back. Why is that the activation animation? What is that? That's the dance that Joey from Friends does when he forgets the moves he's meant to be teaching to the other dancers. Finish the second time-space dungeon, hand it in and get told, awesome, go and kill 6 sheep. Well, okay then. Oh, I've also lost the red quest tracker arrow that did appear above my head. Guess I've just got to remember where the sheep are. If you're on the right map, the arrow points you to where you should go. If you're on the wrong map, well, tough. And the journal doesn't tell you which map you're meant to be on. It just says go and kill 6 sheep. So forgetting a quest location in Lost Tale is actually pretty bad, because there's no in-game hints as to where you should be or where the enemies you need to kill actually are. Your hit points refill outside of combat, so you can take on one tough enemy and then just kind of wait, and you'll be doing this a lot. One thing I do like about the game though is how the damage numbers are still relatively low, nothing over 100 yet. It's grounded in understandable simple numbers. It's an anime game and I've been playing about an hour or so, we're not hitting in the tens of thousands, which is nice. Finish the quest, get asked if I'd like to tell you back, then we're told to go and catch a sheep. I mean, we were just at the sheep. You could have included that with the last quest, but okay, Lost Tale does this a lot. Do a quest, return, go back to the exact same place to do another very similar quest. A giant cabbage, so I click it. You mine the cabbage by dancing at it. What a time to be alive. If you fail to capture an enemy, even if it's below 50% health, there is a 60-second cooldown on the capture skill. These sheep do not want to be captured, so this takes a lot longer than it should. With 2 pets, we're now sent to Miniland, a personal zoo of everything we've captured. We can only have 1 NOS mate active at a time, so this is where we swap them out. And unlike the rest of the game, you cannot swing the camera around in Miniland. It is a fixed angle only. Take my sheep, then get piled by aggressive peas and die. And that's a sentence I never thought I'd say. You can respawn where you are for free up until level 20, or respawn in town. I get sent to another time space, so I avoid the deadly peas and in we go. Here's something I absolutely hate. The text says there is eerie silence, except no, there's still music playing. If you're going to attempt to set the ambience with your text, have the audio and visual match what you're trying to set. You're a video game. That's literally one of the strengths of the entire medium. You don't need to tell the player what's going on. You can have them play through the situation you want them to experience. Don't just say it's eerily quiet. Make it eerily quiet. Another issue I've noticed in these rifts, despite them all being the same, is how you can spin the camera around freely, and there's a map to the top right showing the room layouts and connections, but there's no compass to help you see which direction your camera is facing. So it's super easy to get completely turned around. You need to keep swinging the camera until you are running up in both the game and on the minimap, and that's the only way you'll know the camera is now facing north. Finish the rift, avoid the killer peas, and are there high-level players AoE grinding the peas? No wonder they killed me so easily. Hand in the quest, get told about crafting, another blank tutorial window pops up, so now I need to figure out how crafting works. Thankfully it's just a load of double clicking. And then another text issue. You can choose to craft something once or continuous production. But that phrase, continuous production, is a little too long, so it doesn't quite fit on the button. It just says, continuous product. Small touches game, which make you look amateur. We get sent to Mrs. Styles, the fashion guru. She gives us lunch to take to Callum, so we've gone from sheep slayer to Uber Eats. Callum teaches us about plus skills, and without the text dump tutorial, I actually can't figure out what they want me to do with this system. I click, double click, right click, click and drag, and I cannot figure out how it works. Malcolm needs 10 fruit. Does this mean we explore a farming skill, or go and pick fruit from a tree, or harvest it from a field somewhere? No, it means we go to the next identical time-space rift, kill identical enemies until they've dropped 10 identical
Can you
fruit.
learn that in the academia?
So on the map, red dots are connections to other areas, and blue dots are time-space stones. Each area has a lot of time-space stones, so is this the game? Is the bulk of the gameplay level up and move from rift to rift, with every rift being exactly the same design? In the rifts, the timer keeps on ticking down. When you lose a minute, the screen shakes and you hear a deep thud. And look, if you're not a fan of the gameplay by now, leave, because it doesn't get better. If you're not super excited to find the next time-space rift, then there's not much to keep you around. And the irritating thing is, Knott's Tale isn't bad. Combat feels fine, if a little bit dull in the early game. The graphics and sound are decent, the writing is acceptable if repetitive, the mechanics of the system definitely work, even if the tutorial is broken. The idea of instant dungeons is an okay mechanic. The mechanics that make up Knott's Tale aren't fundamentally bad. Knott's Tale isn't a bad idea for a game, it's just a bad presentation of those ideas. Level up, learn a new skill which I use and then discover is pointless because no skills are actually any better than the standard auto attack. I get some glasses which I equip, and now I'm off to collect 5 beans for Eva. I've gone from rounding up sheep to collecting fruit and then beans. Basically I am a farmer. So while I'm killing these aggressive bean pods, let's just have a read of some reviews. Pay to win, but fun. Hardcore pay to win. Devs make a new server every few months to kill the old one, so people move to a new one and pay because it's needed to maintain the economy. So they see success and scam everybody. Repeat. Awesome game. Decent grind. Friendly players. I really want to love Knott's Tale, but it's so pay to win it hurts. I don't even mind a bit of pay to win in a game, but when you're so pay to win you can't do content, that's a big problem for me. Would love if this game could get a rework, since it's such a nice concept, but because of its age, it doesn't appreciate it another time. You don't have nostalgia from back in the day. Since 2007, it says this. Good game, huge microtransactions. I used to play this game as a kid, and recently I decided to give it a try. It's old and otherwise
Motion to compel.
It's full of pointless, slow and boring grind and heavy pay to win. but I could possibly deal with that. The main problem is GameForge making a new server every few months to make players move to it and spend money over and over again. I honestly regret playing it. It's such a waste of time. Dollars, 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 NOS dollars, dollars, dollars,
This
dollars.
weather's got me in the mood for reciting some laws.
Let's
Let's see. Commercial Law of Leland, Chapter 27, Section 6, Article 3 stipulates that... Wait, what was it? Oh my goodness, I've completely forgotten. What is wrong with me today?
Want some spring water which instantly restores 3,000 health? That'll be 5 NOS dollars, so you can just buy health. Want a seed of power? A consumable item required for entrance into time-space rifts? That's another 5 NOS dollars, so you can buy entrances to dungeons. How about a wedding box for an in-game marriage? Because you earn more experience when you're married. That's 25 NOS dollars, but then when you inevitably want to get divorced because your partner finds out you spent money in this game, a separation letter will be another 25 NOS dollars. When you're upgrading your items, be careful because they might break. So buy a golden protection scroll for 25 NOS dollars, or spend 200 NOS dollars to metamorph your pet into a super powerful archdemon with better attacks and some enemy debuffs. Or to really flex on people, complete limited time events to earn jewels and then buy some Onyx wings. But you best be quick because there are only 75 Onyx wings per server. And
Ad Astra
Abyssos. So you
Abyssos.
want to make sure that you spend enough money
Thank
to
you for
finish the
completing
events
today's...
the fastest. So how do you get NOS dollars? Well, £5 gets you 70 NOS dollars, and £200 will get you 6,000 NOS dollars. Now, one thing GameForge do very well, they've basically put it down to science by now, is abusive pricing structures. Nothing lines up with the sizes of packs, so you're always buying too few or too many. See here, a Tiger Mat is 450 NOS dollars, but the packs you can buy, either 175 or 560. So you're either buying way under or way over what you need. Oh, GameForge, you really do love money and hate players, don't you? So the shop is pretty much pay to win. No defending it, it just is. Next up, we're told there are some monsters in another time-space rift, and we need to help attract soldiers. So
it's the last part
going
today.
into a time-space, by the way, costs 1
Yesterday, I mean.
power. I wonder how long it'll be until I'm forced to buy some. I wonder if they'll get so difficult that I always keep failing and need to try again, which burns through my current seeds. Here's also why I hate this design of being told to go and kill enemies. We get told the village is in trouble. We get told the monsters are bad. We get told the time spaces must be closed. But we never get shown why. We're never actually worried the village is going to get attacked or destroyed. We never get told why the monsters are bad or shown why they're bad. In fact, we've only ever seen monsters just kind of chilling, minding their own business until we come along and kill them. So from an objective point of view, we are the bad guys here. You need to give the player personal motivation from the start of the game to hate something. A reason to hate. You can't just say, you should hate these things because you should. That's empty. There's no personality there. So I finish this time-space rift and then get told to go straight to another time-space rift. This is the early game, 8 hours of time spaces. I really hope you love grinding on small platform-based maze puzzles with red glowing backgrounds because it's what you're gonna be doing. Oh, there are also some emotes, so I have a play around. Some of the emotes are just emojis, and what the hell is that face? It's called Are You Kidding Me? This is the Are You Kidding Me face in Nostale. This is cursed. Now, this emoji needs a bit of explaining, not from me, but from the comment. Maybe this is lost in translation. You didn't quite get this. This emote when you use it, it shows a
Eyes on me!
with the letters KKK.
Special!
I think you might need to speak to your localization team about this. This is great. Oh, I'm level 13. Didn't even notice the build's exactly the same. Doesn't feel different. I've got stronger. So combat has changed. Early game Nostale is like eating one endless piece of spaghetti. It's not offensive, bad, it's not really that enjoyable. Next quest.
Dance with the waves! Can't handle your dreams! Think you can incinerate! Here!
So I look around and notice a small flashing icon.
Inadmissible evidence!
I get teleported to a battle event and see people all waiting around, wanting to spawn, and then they flooded and I forgot we were meant to be following some sort of plot. I don't mind this though. It's quite fun to have a big battle with everyone working together. So I think, you know what, let's get to know the community, see how friendly people are. I say hi, and then I get a reply. Well, guess that about answers that. I die, I get sent back to 10. Also, I've seen something which can't be unseen, and now I've seen it, you need to see it too. I know it's meant to say, above the time-space crystal, but the C and the L are combining into a lowercase d. And now I've pointed it out, you won't ever need it to click again. It's just a crystal with the word D. Now, a quest about killing hard P-pods, not soft P-pods, not regular P-pods, specifically hard P-pods. They all look identical and act identical, but they are in different places, so are clearly different types of P-pods. I get told I need a cobalt mask to investigate the cobalt, so I go and kill some weak toxic dampers and then some light fire seeds. How does this not make sense? Who knows? The game's not making sense with a difficulty degree. By now, I have two collective maps of a village, and it's mostly quiet, and there are no other players around. That's quite telling. Really busy, but this seems like an instance-based game capture and helps the world's summer game. This is also the first quest area, but it's terrible drop rate. It takes me around 4 hours to find the 6 items I need.
To ashes!
More soldiers have returned.
Shake hands, Stern! Incinerate!
More time to power than using. Also, I'm just sick of the time-space of my life. This is such a repetitive game result.
Motion to compel. Positions. This dance is for you. I'm around. The Power the ended hot
There's a dignity stat. This time space is actually worthwhile stronger, because you've got enough time to kill everything and try to gain across another secret power. I failed twice. The enemies are now aggressive. I can't stand them for bombs. But look at this. If you fail time space more than twice, you can try again in loser mode. It doubles your time and makes the enemies weaker. Thanks, game. Survived the rift? Barely. Hand the hammers to the mine guy. He sends me all the way back to the main village to hand this in. There's a lot of running back and forth in Nostam, and nothing happens on the run. It's not an emergent adventure where people
What the fuck?
It's just filler. It's used repeatedly. Other games sometimes use repetitive journeys to teach you the lay of the land and the important landmarks you're going to need to remember to navigate in the future. But because Nostale is split up into smaller maps with clearly defined connection markers, you don't really need to remember that much. And now we've lost the quest arrow above the Avatar's head, so we have to use the minimap to find where the important NPCs are. We explain how we met the miner, found the hammers, and got sent back here, and guess what? We now get sent all the way back to the miner to see if they need any more help. Right, this is getting a bit gratuitous with the back and forth. Also, I've just realised Cobalt is super close to Cobalt, and the plot of Kobolds in the Mine is basically the start of Baldur's Gate 1, which is one of the greatest RPG games ever made. So, another design hint, be very careful when you reference better games, because you're going to invite comparisons, and unless you are the better game, a comparison will not work out in your favour. We equip the Cobalt mask and blend
I need to remember to use my transients.
Yep, I knew it. This is a furry game. The rebelling kobolds speak of a strange plan of action, and we need to stop them. Hang on, are we stopping a revolt by the oppressed workers? Are we legitimately the bad guys? Am I union busting? So we stop their plans by completing another time-space rift, because what other mechanic is there? I really can't get over how lazy the design of the rift is. They are all identical. Oh god, another dumb rift that starts with such a strong wind. I can barely stand on my feet, and then nothing mechanical changes. If you're going to say there's a strong wind in your game, you need to program one. Have the player knocked around, have them move slowly, have a wind effect, both audio and visual. Don't tell me show me. This is high school levels of storytelling. There is no mechanical difference between this rift and every other rift. Adding in the fluff of, oh, it's so windy, doesn't matter. You're a video game. Just have wind. And while I'm being pedantic, why is the keyhole on the room padlock icon upside down? You can literally Google the word keyhole and get thousands of images showing you which way up a keyhole
Busted.
is. How did you get this wrong? Okay, this rift is much harder. Okay, even the truth, I can't kill the enemies fast enough, I can't heal fast enough, and I can't wait all the time. So I speed snap through chicken heads and eventually finally make it through. It seems the difficulty spikes
I see everything.
Finish the rift.
Sharing my
and the
knowledge.
mother do no, then he sends me all the way back to the village to hand it in, and they say, brilliant, go back to the
Get with me.
see what else you need.
Game's up.
No
Fun is
problem.
over. Quietly now. Busted.
Yeah, grow.
Change combat style, equal level 20 before the it says plus 12 for the guide, so I press N12 and
Quietly now.
Wait to join the game. While I was editing this video, I actually discovered that I was wrong. Pressing N12 on the Nostale official client does indeed open the help menu. However, they haven't localized it correctly for Steam. Pressing F12 on the Steam version just takes a screenshot. So now my screenshot folder is full of Nostale. I explore the town and hop through some of the teleport bits, find the bazaar, lots of people buying and selling sticks it seems, find a nice hedgerow in the city centre, then take a teleporter to the Western Crag, a high-level area I absolutely should not be in. But I do like how you can go there. I value freedom and exploration if the player so chooses. Here's my problem with Nostale. It's not a bad idea. It's not
Take
a
it
bad
easy.
concept, it's just presented in a less than stellar way. I get the feeling that there's areas of high quality. The game probably has raids and dungeons and team battles and nice late game areas and crafting and recipes, and I can feel, I can sense there is depth here. But the opening few hours of the game don't play to that. The opening is a broken tutorial with a huge text dump which doesn't work. The windows are broken. There are repetitive kill X quests. There's way too much money. There's quests which don't always follow onto each other, and there's identical time-space rifts which get old after about an hour. It makes me sad because I don't dislike the feeling of playing Nostale. Yes, it's
Make yourselves at home.
Things are about to get dicey.
I know it's there. It's
Our bond is strong. I'm being purified.
Gotcha. Quietly now.
Dissipate.
So to end the review, Overlord Nostale.
I see everything.
Cheers for watching. Another massive thank you to all the supporters on Patreon and Twitch who keep this channel alive. You can support for only £1. Check the video description for links to Patreon, Twitch, Twitter, Discord, and the second channel Josh Drive Plays, where I review old games voted on by you. And as always, have a great day.
Right now, we are in the age of the remake. From Dead Space to Demon's Souls, and from The Last of Us to Like a Dragon, it seems like
What
every
is the
publisher is
situation?
ransacking its back catalogue to look for games it can reheat and
There's
sell to
still
us
a long
all over.
road ahead.
But there's one studio that's doing things differently,
My
and that's
experiment
Capcom. Specifically,
will
its
succeed.
Resident Evil team. Over the last 2 decades, Capcom has remade Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, and 4, and these games feel like way more than just recycled retro favourites. So, what do they
Whatever
do
would you do without me?
and how do they pull it off? Well, I'm Mark Brown, and this is Game Maker's Toolkit. Do you remember when Gus Van Sant remade the movie Psycho? This was no ordinary remake. Instead, it was a near-perfect, shot-for-shot recreation of the original film, with the same script, camera moves, and musical score, but a few modern updates, like shooting in colour and adding more gore and nudity to that infamous shower scene. If you don't remember it, I'm not surprised. I think everyone involved would rather you forgot. The remake bombed at the box office, it was savaged by critics, Roger Ebert called it pointless, and Hollywood has never tried such a thing again. For the most part. But in the world of video games, well, this is actually how a lot of remakes work. Despite using all new engines and assets, the goal is to be as faithful as possible to the original game, to make a beat-by-beat recreation of what came before, but with a few conservative tweaks to the gameplay or content. Now this can certainly lead to good games, and I've used these remakes to catch up on titles I've missed upon release. But I think there are two big problems with this approach. For one, it can lead to games with absolutely cutting-edge graphics, gameplay that feels
Inazuma shines eternal!
and two, if you've already played the original,
Illusion shattered!
it's incentive to pick up the remake. So that's why Capcom doesn't focus.
Propagate!
While its remakes are
Squirrel, Mark
heavily
II,
influenced by the
Animal.
original games, it deliberately changes both the gameplay and
Nothing
the
lasts
content.
forever.
For gameplay, take Resident
Scatter!
Evil 2.
There is no
PlayStation
escape.
Enemies fixed. CCTV style
Emerge,
camera
right here,
and Leon
right
moved
now.
around like a tank. Capcom
Propagate.
did experiment with keeping this viewpoint, but ultimately went for something more modern, turning it into an over-the-shoulder shooter. And
I think
for
I'll be
content,
able to do
look at
stuff faster if I had a shield.
this remake
to deal with
mostly
the
follows the beats of
micro
the original
that have
game,
lots of
but
poison
regularly
there passing.
changes. Content is moved around, played out of order, expanded, shrunk, cut entirely, and replaced by brand new stuff. So even if you played the original, this remake is full of surprising twists. Take the iconic village siege from the opening of the game. Seems familiar enough, but then I went up this tower and, oh, that's not how I remember it. And then I rounded this corner and, oh no, what's happening now? Capcom says if we remade the game so players do the exact same thing as the original, that's not really going to be fun or interesting. Of course, it's not enough to just say, throw out the source material and do something new. Remakes
Where
are
are the
playing to our
shields?
nostalgia for the original, and any changes can feel like blasphemous meddling with perfection. There are no shortage of remakes that have angered fans by changing things too much, whether that's Ratchet's
Come with me.
characterization,
I really
Peter
don't have
Parker's
beta.
face, or VentureBeat describing Shadow of the Colossus' new graphics as too good. So Capcom says its remakes show love for the original work through their content, which includes both where the remake makes changes and where
Let's
it
finish
remains the
this
same
quickly.
as the original. They know when to stay faithful and how
Ready
to
for
stray from
anything.
the source. One way to do this is to focus on capturing the sensation of playing the original game, even if you're not copying the exact details. For Resident Evil 2, Capcom says
I've
a
been
guiding
waiting for you
principle was
for
that whenever
ages.
people play this, they should get the same feeling we got back in the day, even though the outer layers are different. So while it loses the forced camera perspective, the developers still wanted the game to be tense and claustrophobic, and so made it difficult to aim exactly where you want, and kept the camera tight behind Leon's back. A smart approach is to identify some pillars of the original, things that define the DNA of what made it so beloved in the first place. For Resident Evil 4, that included stuff like its lightning-fast pace, its B-movie dialogue, the way you can tackle encounters in different ways, and how fun the game was to replay. The designers behind the Dead Space remake had a similar idea, with sci-fi horror, unbroken immersion, and creative gameplay as the pillars. Any novelty, enhancement, enrichment, or whatever had to fit inside one of these
Everyone's
pillars.
okay.
Sense.
The Temple of Wisdom!
These pillars should be
I
feelings.
fucking was holding the E button.
It's not mechanics to
Go as planned!
I
swear by my
allow
skin.
developers to change how the game works without messing with how it feels. For example, Leon uses knife for some brand new moves like the Stealth.
Don't blink! Hey!
This could change the feel of the game. Leon great and done by
Incoming.
Leon stays one step behind, and the remake stays true to the survival horror feeling of the original. So, this approach can be used
Speed
to
of light.
address the three main things that all remakes should consider. Number one is modernization. Remakes are entering the industry today, and so people expect modern conventions and enhancements like fast travel and save.
Speed of light.
See mechanics that are honestly dated, so let's say unfashionable. That's why Capcom bought the button bashing quick time events from Mario 4 QTEs
Don't blink.
to these games. So, but any change to the mechanics is going to have a
Everyone hold hands.
to the rest of the game.
Share my
It's
knowledge.
ruining the feel.
Tenacious.
Take the new Golden Buster. It makes sense to evolve from one of the first-person shooter controls.
Cut to the chase.
Game which was designed for much convenience.
Speed of light.
Makes it a arcade
Yeah.
Resident Evil 4
Committed to memory.
to the same track. In the original game, Leon couldn't aim and aim at the same time. He became a target every time he moved.
This may hurt a little. Don't blink.
It was an intentional choice on Capcom's part. In 2004, it said we didn't want to go into the shooting/army type genre. The remake lets Leon strafe, and he generally moves around like a typical shooter protagonist. But to counterbalance this change, the enemies are now more aggressive and more numerous. So despite Leon's newly nimble movement, the game still feels as pulse-pounding as ever. Number two is addressing criticism of the original. If there's one thing that puts me off from replaying Resident Evil 4, it's Ashley. This lengthy escort quest can become an annoying bit of babysitting that threatens to spoil the fun. Of course, it would be tempting to dramatically change how she works in this remake, perhaps make her invincible and helpful like the partner characters in games released since 2005. But that would change the dynamic of the original game, so instead, Capcom made more considered changes, with careful tweaks to her AI, her health bar, and her characterization. No game is perfect, and there will always be elements that don't gel with fans, or indeed, the developers. Talking about The Wind Waker, Zelda boss Eiji Aonuma says right after the game was completed, there would be discussions about how we wish we could have done something different, and so the Wii U version makes some welcome changes, like speeding up a contentious late game fetch quest. And number three is making the game more approachable and accessible. A remake is trying to win over people who never played the original, and that includes those who bounced off the first game or were never able to start it. The first Resident Evil remake was intentionally designed to ease in new players, with Capcom accepting that the first game really threw you into the deep end, and Resident Evil 2 through 4 all come with an assisted difficulty setting, with features like health regeneration and aim snapping. Old games can be notoriously difficult to get into, and rarely accommodated players with disabilities, so it's good to see remakes that make things more approachable and add accessibility options. The Last of Us Part 1 is a notable standout, with perhaps the most extensive suite of options seen in a game thus far. But it's almost always important to make these changes optional. In the Pokemon Diamond and Pearl remakes, the devs added a team-wide EXP share, which means that when you win a battle, all of your Pokemon get experience points. This wrecked the balance and made the game super easy, barely an inconvenience. It would have been a good option for those who want an easier time, but it's now just part of the game and can't be disabled, which annoys those who want more of a challenge. I kind of feel the same way about this button in Resident Evil 4's remake, which automatically tidies up your attaché case. And I know I could just not press the button, but it's right there. Of course I'm going to press the button. I'm weak. So Capcom doesn't try to perfectly recreate the original game when it does a remake. It freely changes characters, plot points, mechanics, puzzles, and content. This makes each remake feel as fresh as a brand new release, and enjoyable even to those who have finished the original a million times. But it uses the sensation of playing the first game as a lodestar to carefully guide new changes, keeping Resident Evil 2 scary, and making sure Resident Evil 4 still feels like
Absorption test. Animal test 6308. Animal hyperstick. The Temple of Wisdom. Committed to memory.
Into a simplistic set
Nowhere to
piece,
hide.
RE3 doesn't accurately capture the sensation of the PlayStation original, and so it kind of fails as a remake.
Speed of light.
Right, says Capcom. A remake of a game can deliver a new experience to players, while also touching upon the
Don't blink.
memories we have of the
Cut to the
original,
chase.
which is an appeal that is different from the appeal of a completely new game. But there's one problem when it comes to making such
Sharing
massive
my
changes in a remake.
Animal
See,
Test
the reason why
6308.
Psycho was done
Speed of light.
is because the 1960 original is readily available and ordinarily watchable today. In general, it's reasonably easy to remaster a movie, which means to go back to the master recording and make a new print with an improved picture
Grow.
on a format like Blu-ray.
Incoming.
This means that in fact, remakes are
Like the
really
thing I
adapt the
misunderstand.
source material, completely changing the film to work in a different time, or a different culture, or with a different audience. Change what you want. The original is always available. But games are different. Old games get stuck on disintegrating hardware. Digital games get delisted. Online games see their servers go down, and entire storefronts go offline. And it's actually really tough to do a straight remaster of a game, and there are no shortage of funny ones to point to. Truly great remasters like Metroid Prime on Switch are a rare treat. So for some players, well, they're counting on a remake as the only way to revisit their old
Just
favourites.
what will we come across
They
this
want it to
time?
be exactly
What
the way
is the
they remember
situation?
it. They're looking for that ultra-faithful recreation with a few modern
The threads of your
updates. They
fate
want
lie in my
Gus Van
hands.
Sant's Psycho. But I don't think this means we need more shot-for-shot remakes. It just means we need better game preservation, and to praise publishers who provide access to the original titles. Because no matter what you think of the new Resident Evil 4 remake, it ultimately lives alongside an excellent and very moddable HD remaster of the original game. The RE4 remake doesn't try to overwrite or replace the 2005 original, and I'm sure I'll be replaying both in the future. Sadly, the older Resident Evil games are not so easy to play today, and I hope Capcom rights that wrong in the same way it does its many Mega Man compilations.
Illusion Spring Force! Shatter! Wings of Darkness! Enhanced Animal Module 75! Now you shall perish!
Released the original game, enhanced edition, and even dropped the source code online.
Shine down!
Zero Mission
Propagate!
used Intel
Oz,
Metroid
reveal!
right
Animal
there
Test
in
6308!
That was neat. Just don't rely on
Terminate!
Rockstar, who
As you wish, Main Foil.
games from
There is
Steam.
no escape! Torn to oblivion!
Disastrous remasters.
Ha!
Or Blizzard, who removed Warcraft 3 to make way for it. Again, disastrous remake. So, what do you reckon? Is Capcom king of
There
the
we go,
remakes,
got 1
or
minute.
do you prefer more faithful recreations? Let me know in the comments down below.
What is going on, everyone? Deegis here with another Advance Wars by Way replay analysis. Today we got you heard it yourself. We got ourselves two of the best fog
Illusion
players
Shot!
currently active.
Scatter!
Mordred and Nightmare of Eden. Let's call
Swirl,
Rhymer.
Mark II,
Person,
absorption
you should
test.
say Rhymer.
Now you shall
know
perish!
You know these names. Played Rhymer before. Mordred before. These are the strongest current.
There is no escape.
Spring
forth! Shadow Raven!
That's right. That's
Animal hypostasis and shine down!
So you know for a
Inazuma shines eternal!
Now let's look at this map right here. It's called Verdun. If I know anything about French. Not. There used to be a map called Verdun. Now it's slightly changed. I think there's a little bit less forest than before, a little more road, so it's easier to traverse. Before there was a little too many forests, and it kind of led its way to stall, grid play, and Sturm play. Now there's a little less forest. There's still currently forest here, so Sturm is still quite powerful on this map, but he's not as overpowered as he once was. The thing about this map, it is tiny. It's 17 by 17, and there's 3 bases and an airport, but there's a lot of income. It's tiny but high and very strange combination. Don't see too frequently in Advanced Wars, by the way. So you're going to be having around 23,000
Illusion
Midnight Phantasm.
Assuming both sides will be
Propagate!
There's a shit ton of change.
Stand clear!
Here. Look at these chains.
Now you shall perish!
So many damn chains. So many chains. That doesn't do anything. Don't even bother capturing that matchup.
Enhanced Animal Module 75. Wings of Darkness. Come. Spring Force. Shine down. Torn to oblivion.
But we have an interesting matchup. Like I mentioned in previous videos,
By
the
royal
current meta
decree.
is if it's 3 base and it's far, you typically will see Olaf. 90% of the time. Maybe you see some Max, maybe see some Eagle. Typically see Max Eagle 2 base. Like we saw in that other map I did, Cross Country Rival, we saw Eagle versus Max because Olaf's not very good on 2 base. 3 base, you see Olaf time in
I think
and
that's
time
enough for
in,
now.
just takes the show. He's strong. He's
I
got
got
the
other
easy
stuff
use
I wanna
people
do.
power. You see a lot of Olaf mirrors. You see a lot of Olaf versus Max or Olaf wins. You see a lot of Olaf versus Eagle or Olaf wins. But I'm glad to see we have some Eagle instead of having an Olaf mirror like we always see. And it switches things up a bit. You see a lot of Baxter's Eagle and you see a lot of Olaf mirrors. Typically you don't get them crossing over too frequently. But we have one of the best Eagle players here, Nightmare. Now the thing about Nightmare, he's a very defensive and long-term oriented person. He plays as Stern, builds up a lot of indirects. He plays as Eagle, he builds up a lot of forces things. He's a strong superpower. He's not super aggressive. He will build up his forces till he has around 30 units, and then push you into the ground. He's very calculated, he takes his time, somewhat similar to Go, but even less aggressive than Go. He's very patient. He's just a very patient guy. He picks Drake in tier 3. He's global damage, stally-ish. Maybe sometimes picks Hawk, but most of the time I see him pick Stern. Tordred, y'all know Tordred. Hyper aggressive. This is a battle between 2 different types of playstyles going head to head.
Alright, amuse me.
So it's going to be an interesting matchup. Eagle, as you know, you want to hold on to as many units as possible, and then when you have maybe 30, 40, as many units as possible, then you use your superpower. You want to stall the game as long as possible. Olaf, on the other hand, you want to get some early pressure. You want to get your Winter Fury before he uses his Lightning Strike. If you get your Winter Fury after a Lightning Strike, you're probably dead.
Clear skies can do
So,
nothing to hide the
it's all
brilliance
about
of
getting
lightning.
superpower first with Olaf, getting
Divine bolts
advantage,
can strike even in
beating
the
shit
absence
out
of rain.
people by using
Do you
Winter
see
Fury,
that
destroying
tree?
a lot of units. Now, Eagle is a double-edged sword in Fog. The reason being, it's harder to plan your Lightning Strike. It's harder to know where all the units are. It's harder to know what you will do in 2 turns. You need a lot of vision with recons. You need a lot of ideas where to go, but it's also a double-edged sword. At least good in Fog because the opponent doesn't know where all units are. You can be extra aggressive as Eagle